Hello, my name is David Johnson. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Decooda. Decooda is a software company that specializes in customer experience technology. And our claim to fame is that we identify the what and why behind customer behavior, and we do that by analyzing customer feedback across multiple channels to reveal the customer's emotions, their state of mind, the topics that they're discussing, and a wide array of what we call cognitive states. We look at all that information at the same time to produce a rich understanding of the context of the conversation and identify very precisely what's moving the needle and why as it relates to the experience or the product that the customer is using. We've had many conversations with executives over the past several months, and it's become very obvious to us that there are a lot of questions in the marketplace regarding CX technology. And so we put together what we call the Executive Briefing Series to give executives a primer in technologies so that they can start to understand some of the newer contemporary capabilities that are in the marketplace and contrast it to perhaps what they have in-house. So here we're going to talk about customer experience, specifically what we did with customer experience. And our positioning is this: Decooda Beat CX with a simple stick, and we made it better for you, your employees, and your customers. So when we talk to executives, everybody kind of wants to know the same question. Why is this so complicated when it seems so easy? All we should be doing is focus on giving our clients a better experience. And yes, on the surface it seems very easy, but there are a lot of moving parts in that process. And so, when you look at the different technologies that are out there and capabilities that are out there and existing systems that companies have in place, it's often very hard to wire things together to deliver a cohesive customer experience. And so one of the challenges that we believe is that one of the things that gets in the way of doing that is providing a level of empirical evidence that inspires people to want to lean in and really buy into the process of being a customer advocacy-based organization. And so, yes, there's a tremendous amount of noise in the marketplace, and the reason there is, and the reason there's so much confusion, I believe, to some extent, is because there is not an answer that's been adopted as this is the methodology. I think the market is still searching for that methodology. We think we have a good answer. You'll ultimately be the judge of that, but we think that that's why you see so much noise in the marketplace today. And so today I'm going to talk about how we simplified CX and how it will benefit you and your organization. As I was talking earlier about the messaging in the marketplace, and there's a tremendous amount of noise, it's almost like the market is screaming at people as it relates to voice of customer. And what I think you see here is you see all these messages. It's methodology, it's buy-in, it's multi-channel, you need a vision, you need alignment, you need to motivate people, you need employee engagement, you need to have multi-channel voice of customer. It's like everything. And there is no roadmap to success. This is the proven path to go forward. Therefore, everything is considered equal. So if this were a word cloud, they'd all be the same size and they'd all be the same color. And we think that this is very problematic for anybody related to the CX industry today. And so this is what's called the Gartner hype cycle. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this. This is when new innovations are announced. There's this euphoric state around what it's going to do to the marketplace. But then there's this realization, this self-actualization for technology, where we start to realize that perhaps the claims don't meet the reality. And so here you find this space. And now what you find ourselves in as it relates to customer experience space right now, as of 2016, this is where the CX space is. And again, this is because the reality does not match the claims. And so we believe we have a better answer to improve upon this. Ultimately, you'll be the judge of that. But this is where we are right now. So if you're frustrated, what I can tell you is you're not alone. So as I mentioned, Decooda Beat CX with a simple stick in order to make it better. And the foundation for Decooda is the fact that we consider ourselves to be an interdisciplinary data science company. And the reason I mention that is that most companies are engineering focused. We're cognitive science and corpus linguistics focused, along with artificial intelligence and several other engineering techniques. But we bring all these people together to produce a different type of insight and a different type of result, one where we understand the context of the conversation so that you can take action with confidence. So this is not new technology. We've been using it for years, and we have a case study here related to a consumer goods company that we work with. Just to give you an idea of the level of granularity that we can drive to and what we can do with our predictive insights. So in this particular case, we've actually been able to prove that a product will be successful back in the innovation, concept development, and pre-market stage. But not only whether it will be successful or not, how successful it will be. And we do that by leveraging all these techniques I talked about earlier. And this is all primarily based upon analyzing the unfiltered voice of the customer, this conversational communication where customers can communicate to us in our voice, in their voice, and we analyze that information to produce those insights. These insights are used to identify opportunities as it relates to innovation, the next big thing. Where's the next iPad? The thing that people didn't know they needed until they saw it for the first time. And what are the best product improvements or the best product line extensions that we should be focused on? That's what we are able to identify through the analysis process that we've implemented. Ultimately, go, no-go decisions are made on these decisions. Our insights go all the way to the top of the organization. And then ultimately, what I can tell you is that we have a great track record of success. I don't want to talk about any measurements, but if you would like some of the details on that, I'd be happy to share them with you directly. So our workflow for customer experience is very simple. We basically ask 2 questions, or maybe a handful of questions. It goes into our cognitive insights machine. We interpret those results for you so that you can act with confidence. And then we have a variety of other things that we enable as it relates to collaboration and customer feedback case management. And we track all that information so we can present a body of evidence to you, a new ground truth of empirical evidence that helps you inspire the organization to lean in without coercion, to get on board, to become more client-centric. So here's a little bit about the questions that we ask our clients. So the first one will be a traditional Net Promoter Score question. How likely are you to recommend this particular mobile carrier to others for the products and or services you use? A scale of 0 to 10, they would fill that out. And then we follow that up with what we call an imaginative question. And an imaginative question is something like this. Tell us about your most recent experience and tell us as if you were telling a good friend. Try to capture all the important aspects of your experience, both the good and the bad, and describe if and why you would or would not recommend this particular mobile carrier. What we're doing is we're asking a question in a very contemporary form, and we're asking people to communicate what's specifically on their mind. From that point forward, we do all the heavy lifting of analyzing that information. So how much better are the insights related to an imaginative question versus traditional open-ended survey questions? Quite dramatically. We have vastly greater positive and negative emotion that we see, much better broad sentiment, greater cognitive state, and much greater data relative to attribution so that we can use all this information to, again, understand the context of the conversation, identify the very specific elements of the product or experience and move the needle for customers so that data becomes actionable for you. So the key to the key to why is the impact analysis. And the impact analysis is really focused on solving a fundamental problem in the industry today. And that is being able to differentiate between what people talk about a lot versus what really motivates and inspires behavior change. And so we have a lot of conversations with executives, and one of the executives that we've talked to recently made this statement. They said, the more data we get, it appears the dumber we are. And essentially, I think what they were communicating is that they get lost in the volumes of information. When everything's talked about a lot, it's hard to identify the thing to invest in. It's almost a coin toss at some point. And so what we did is we took this analysis to the next level. We don't just look at what people are talking about, we look at how it's actually influencing their behaviors and their emotions and so on. And so let's look at a very specific example. Here we're looking at a topic frequency. And a topic frequency, in this case, this is a complaints analysis where you have a series of complaints. I de-identify the data to protect the innocent, but essentially what you would have here is you would have a series of things that people are talking about or that they were complaining about. And if you were to see this analysis, you would say, well, let's go focus on A, B, C, and D because people are discussing these topics, disproportionately greater than E through J. And so on the surface, this might seem like the right decision, but it's not. And how we arrive at that conclusion is we look at each topic and then we apply weights where we see emotions occur, changes to someone's persona. We evaluate the overall experience discussion, meaning that customers are talking about their needs being met or their needs being unmet. Do they trust the company or not trust the company? Was the product worth the money or not worth the money? And here we get into purchase path and identifying where they were in the purchase cycle. All this information is used and applied to these topics. And we're essentially taking the topic and we're increasing the value of it because we're adding an impact associated with that topic. And what we've done is we've essentially created a 2x2 matrix where we place these impact topics into. And essentially what you have here is you have a scale of low impact conversations and then high impact conversations. Low emotions, high emotions is an example. And then frequency, low frequency conversations versus high frequency conversations. When you place the points in this grid after we do the analysis, what you would find, in fact, is that D and B are discussed often and they have high impact associated with them. Whereas C and A, while people talk about them a lot, they have no impact on behavior. And so this becomes much more actionable. If you're an executive and you're wondering where you should be prioritizing your investments, right here we're identifying that D and B should be the priority investments, followed by G, E, and F, and you may or may not even choose to focus on A and C. So this is a vastly different type of analysis than what you would normally see through other techniques that are presented to you. So once we go through that process and we present this information to you, executives and operational leaders interact with this data. We present a series of dashboards. But inside our environment, we've created two additional functions. Number one is collaboration. You can actually collaborate with your peer group and other stakeholders in the organization as it relates to what you're seeing in these dashboards. When you do that, it enters a process where everything goes into an auditing, compliance, and governance engine. Every single thing associated with that collaboration topic is tracked going forward. Think of it as an organizational memory for things that caught your attention. The other thing that we do is we look at every individual case that we want to identify and engage in with individual customers. So you may say, well, if we have a customer that's angry and they're talking about this particular topic, there's a group of people that should engage with those customers individually, and we should track what it takes to convert them from perhaps being dissatisfied to satisfied. That whole process goes through the same auditing, compliance, and governance process, and we track everything associated with those activities. So that ultimately, I can tell you what the journey was to resolve those issues for those customers. I can tell you what were the outlier topics that had the greatest length associated with them so that you can understand what you need to do in order to address that within your own organization. So all this data is made very transparent and visible to you. And this empirical evidence that we're producing becomes incredibly valuable as you're trying to inspire the rest of the team to lean in and participate in this concept of being more customer focused. So what's really valuable is all the information that we're producing, not only the impact scores, not only the collaboration features, not only the case management features, but all this data is being kept in a way that we can present it to create the agenda for your executive leadership team meetings related to customer experience, as well as the meetings for your operational teams. And so as an executive, it may be 30 days or 90 days between your meetings related to customer experience. What we're going to be able to do is automatically give you visibility into what transpired over that period of time automatically. You won't have to have people run around the organization and try and interpret what happened. We will tell you specifically what happened, and we will identify the outlier issues or areas that you need to focus on automatically. So we try to do everything we can to make this as simple as possible. The thing to note here, in order to implement our application, you don't need to suffer through 6 months or a year of journey mapping. You can begin to use our application nearly instantaneously and then apply these other features going forward and really never require, to some extent, the concept of journey mapping. We will tell you what the journeys are automatically based upon the analysis that we produce inside our application. So what does this mean to executives? Well, from an insights perspective, what it means is that our 1 or 2 questions is essentially the same as 10 to 75 structured survey questions. So we make the survey process much better. But the data that comes out of the process is great because we're producing for you a clear understanding of the unfiltered voice of the customer. We identify what's moving the needle and why. We're able to correlate these the investments that you make in customer experience to business performance. We allow your team to provide you the answers to the most difficult questions that you have. Probably most importantly, we're producing this level of evidence that inspires people to believe and buy into the concept of being customer focused. And then ultimately, your decisions can be made on high degrees of empirical evidence with high degrees of confidence. And ultimately, our application can be implemented in days versus years with other applications. So we think that we've created an approach that allows organizations to step into this capability very easily, but not just do it in a simple way, while at the same time we provide even greater and more accurate insights that are actionable. So our whole goal is to really focus on helping you understand your customer's state of mind on a continuous basis. That's it. We want to help you understand what's happening so you can take action with confidence. We'd love the opportunity to engage with you and talk more about how we can help you. And if you just want to get together and have a quick chat about technology in general, we'd be happy to do that as well. Please reach out to me directly if you have any questions, and if you'd like this presentation, I'll forward that off to you as well. Thank you, and have a great day.